Hey everyone, one of the techniques you might want to use in Photoshop when you're out and about doing photos that have got quite a high sort of dynamic range is blending. Um, and if we have a look at this series of 4 images, you'll see this is the lightest of the 4, and the sky and any detail through this hollow here is absolutely lost. And that's because we've exposed for the most sort of shaded areas, and when you do that, if you've got a white sky or a light sky behind it, you definitely lose details. So the next one we exposed a little bit less, and I've made it roughly about a stop at a time that I've been coming back down. And the third one we're a whole lot less, and you can see now we're starting to get some detail back in the sky. And I have noticed that this horizon is a little bit uneven. So we'll fix that in Photoshop, because unless the Earth has suddenly taken on a tilt, it means that I've probably not had the camera straight. And the last one, if you see even just the difference between this one here, if you look at the sky, and the last one there, there's a bit more detail in. Now you may say, why don't we just take the middle one, go into Photoshop and blend that? And that might work. The only thing is, these bits where they're sort of the brightest parts, you're definitely not going to get the detail back from that. And if you go down into these hollows here, it's almost black. So you could try that and bring it back up, and maybe give you a bit more consistency over the sort of light and dark. But let's see what Photoshop can do. So I'm going to take the 4 images. So I've got first one highlighted. I'm holding Shift on the keyboard and clicking them, so that's 4 now highlighted. I'm going to go into Photoshop. So it's I'm in Bridge here. You can do it in any way, but Bridge works for me. So we'll go up to the Tools menu, down to Photoshop, and one that I don't use too often is Merge to HDR Pro, but I'm going to use it today for this. So open up, and Photoshop does what Photoshop does best. It looks at all the images, and it's going to work out all the jaggy points, all the contrasty points, align these photos up, and it's going to take us into another screen after this, and it's going to let us add some local adjustments. Now, one of the things you have to realise is when you do these HDR blends, Photoshop straight off the back will give you a 16-bit image. Now the problem with 16-bit images, you don't get the option to save that as a JPEG, which for this we're going to save as a JPEG, but we could save it just as a PSD, or we can go down to 8-bit. So we'll just go down to 8-bit, and we've got some. If you see here, when I'm in 16-bit, I can use some of these presets, which a lot of them are, you're never going to use them. And if we just quickly scroll down through the arrows, yeah, not very nice, and not really something you would put out as a finished image. So we'll use the default. 16-bit, we'll go down to 8-bit. Definitely tick remove ghosts, and that's because there might be a little bit of breeze, there might be a little bit of movement in the camera, so we want to move ghosts, and it will try and keep all these really solid edges together. So let's have a wee look and see what we can do with this. Come down to this bottom panel here. So the shadow we're going to bring up for sure, and even though you're moving these quite a bit, it takes a while for it to actually move on that. Highlights, we can bring highlights up a little. Generally we'll take them down. Oops, that was too much. And you can see it really blows out, and you've got about 5 stops between the. And there we've got all the white, all the colour. The shadows we definitely want to bring up a bit more. Let's bring shadows all the way up to see what difference it's making. Not very much, so we'll drop that back down a bit. And I really don't like using exposure in here, but it may be the best thing for this. So we'll just pull it up a little bit at a time. and it takes Photoshop a second to actually make that adjustment. Pull it up a lot, that's not doing anything. Pull the gamma up, not doing anything. Let's try the let's try the 8-bit. I mean 8-bit we might get a bit more movement here. And it seems to be that it takes you ages to do anything. Take the highlights back down, shadows are way too high, and as long as we can see into these shadows, which we can, I'm quite happy now to take this into Photoshop. So it's plus 46% shadows, which means we're definitely going to have a little bit of noise. I'm not going to touch anything else in here at the moment, just click OK. And because we're 8-bit, we will get the option to save this as a JPEG. Now, there's still more work to be done in the shadows, it still looks a bit dull, and we want to bring a bit more of this colour back into here. So we're going to go straight into the camera raw module just as soon as we've got this image. So we'll double it. So Control and J will give you a duplicate of that layer. Filter and camera raw. And now we'll get a better idea of these highlights. They slide up a lot better. We can take the exposure up. And what's good about taking the exposure up, you can then bring the highlights back down. Take highlights all the way down there. And what I'm trying not to do is give this a HDR effect. Put a little bit more vibrance in there. I'm going to bring the color temperature up just a little. Not too much there. If you go too far down with highlights, you can have horrendous. So let's do that. So we've lightened it a bit, sharpened it a bit. We definitely want to sharpen it a little. So we're going to go to Filter, Other, and High Pass. And we'll want to do it by a couple of pixels and click OK. And we're then going to hold Alt and click on the mask, and it will hide all that. We'll also change the blend mode to linear light. So now let's use the mask, and we'll try and bring some of that shadow detail back. We've got a big brush, nice big soft brush, and I'm just going to paint into the shadow areas. And you'll see where. And what I'm also doing, because I've only got 6% flow, is allowing that sharpening to take effect on some of these more rugged bits. Still needing a little bit more light in there, I think, so I'm going to use a curves layer, curves adjustment layer. I'm just going to go for the middle of the and that's looking a little bit better now. And I might do a little colour adjustment layer, colour balance layer. And I want it to be just a little bit more warm, so put a little bit red in there. And we'll not go for the greens, just a little bit green. And a little bit more yellow as well. And this layer here, I'm going to change it just to a hue or a colour layer, or a saturation layer, where you get just a hint of something having changed, but not too much. And I think I'll probably drop it back to maybe about 50%. And the last thing I'm going to do is straighten this image, because at the moment we're lying a little bit skew with. So the ruler tool, and if we go to this horizon, it's nice and straight. Click on that and click on. And the reason it's not doing it at the moment is because of Control, Alt, Shift and E. It wouldn't do it on a adjustment layer, it needs to be on a real layer. So hit the straighten key and then we'll probably need to do a little crop, just make sure that we don't have any unstraightened edges in there. And that'll do fine, just there, and we've got all the elements we need there for a nice seascape. Thanks for watching.